We just had our tea and tour yesterday, open day, and one of the questions that came from parents was about curriculum and what curriculum we follow, what will children learn. You all know that Small World is a project-based or inquiry-based school, but that is also CAPS compliant. So CAPS is the curriculum of the country, South Africa. And that's the sort of government curriculum, and we align to that, but at the same time we also undergo projects together with the children about the things that interest them. Interestingly, you can do all these very fascinating, interesting topics of inquiry that children bring to us as burning questions, but you can also retrospectively assess the CAPS curriculum, because all the while they might be studying trees or nature or whatever, they are also learning about many of the outcomes of the CAPS curriculum. So they're learning how to be better friends, socio-emotional development. Of course, they're learning their shapes and colors and numbers long ago already. But also just through topics of interest to the actual children. So I've got some old documentation here, and I thought maybe we can just have a look at that to see, what kind of things we might look at and study together. Of course, there's always our favorite, so reading, writing, and arithmetic. And these are sort of printouts of the documentation we send home to families, where children are learning to read and write, but in very sort of ways that are fascinating to them. So this one was all about building words, and you can see here this child is building word worms with letters and Play-Doh. They called them word snakes, and they said making word snakes, some are long and some are short. Some words are long and some words are short. And just playing around with words in that way. I know we had our set of letters out, and this was one of those sandpaper letters, and just such a fascinating discussion about the shape of this E. We passed it around the group, and one child said, upside down, it actually looks like an armadillo. And don't you think that's true? It looks like a curled up armadillo. Noah said, or it could be like a lock unlocked. And do you see what he means? What Noah means? A lock unlocked. You see, click there. And Muhammad says he thinks it looks like a 6. And, he's probably right in some ways. And Luna says, like a boat with a sail. And maybe she's thinking of a boat like this with its sail, or maybe like this, I don't know. But you see that sort of juicy way of learning to read and write that the children just, absolutely love. It just sinks into their brain in the most delicious way, rather than sort of cold, hard, dry facts. A is for apple, B is for whatever it is. But alongside that, we're also looking at really fascinating things like nature and the digital all together. And I remember this beautiful story about how this inquiry unfolded, where children found beautiful things in the park, and I remember them being absolutely fascinated about the similarities between their park finds and the human anatomy. And the children worked very hard to draw similarities. For example, this is Sadat, and he says that this flower, you see that flower there? He says that's like your eye. Isn't that so observant, how he's noticed the similarities in design, we could say sacred design. This one is Cody, and he's looking at a picture of the lungs, the anatomy of the lungs, and he says inside the lungs, it looks like a tree. And he went on to say, draw a comparison between the lungs and the tree, and how the lungs breathe out what the tree breathes in. And I just thought it's such a lovely way for children to learn not only about anatomy. Yes, we can learn about anatomy in preschool, but shapes and all of that, but also nature, and how we are connected to nature in that way. So yeah, really beautiful potentials for children to learn about things that they really are actually interested in, and not to put a ceiling on their interests at all. Here is a child who's looking at a sort of skeletal structure of the human, and here they get to sort of redraw it and remake it with lots of different kind of materials. In fact, this human has 2 hearts. They said two brains. So the head's been chopped off there, you can see, and so they've gifted it 2 hearts. One is here where the heart is, and the other one is here where the brain is. I'm so sorry, I've got totally mixed up, but that they said that the human has 2 brains. One is the heart brain and the other is the gut brain. There, I finally got it right. Yes, and we'll look at space. So here is in the STEM atelier, children zooming, getting an aerial view of where we live through projection of Google Maps and where Small World is. But just really exciting ways to learn about the world. As the children are discovering it, but also being given a chance to remake it. Remember, we actually made a movie as well, from start to finish, with a script and the characters. We explored heroism and anti-heroism, and in a very sort of complex way. Is it okay to shoot baddies, for example, in the movie that they were making, and big philosophical discussions about that. Of course, arithmetic. We love our maths and numbers. Children were given what's called flard cards, which is normally stationery lists for primary schools, and we played around with these, sorting them out, and just learning about what numbers actually look like. Some have 1 numeral, some have 2, some have thousands. Looking at the rhythms and patterns in nature, children being able to access the garden as well as the park across the road, and many potentials get unlocked with that. Looking at patterns in nature and the sacred design of all things. Looking at geography, looking at the symbols of countries and so on. What was this again? I remember. Oh yes, this was about making a symbol for yourself. I remember one child drew a spiral to symbolize themselves. He said, "We are symboling ourselves." And Liam drew a moon to represent himself. I think, of course, you can draw self-portraits to symbol yourselves, to symboling yourselves. This is Liam, and he said, "I'm small and invisible, but I got big powers, like Ant-Man," he said. And he drew a picture of himself, small but big. This was Luna, and she was 5 years old. She drew perfectly representational image of herself. Yes, she was wearing red shorts and a teal shirt. She says, "For real life, I'm wearing my red shorts today and a blue top. But in my dreams, I have wings to fly." So just that sort of child-centered, that's what we mean by child-centered curriculum. We went on to to talk about our flag, the South African flag. We also made our own flags. Here, the children made all different kinds of symbols to represent this idea of representing country or small world or themselves. And Becky drew this heart flag. She said, "My flag is loving and powerful. Love is powerful. If love is connected forever, it'll be okay." It's awesome that this class of Small World School is fond of love, she said, in a typical Becky way, and that was her flag, of all the hearts connected forever. She says if we can just stay connected, then we'll be all right. Yeah, so very, very fascinating, deep, juicy ways of learning. Of course, there's also lots of gross motor, athletics, races, and well, even just how to run a race. And we called this inquiry the game of life because it was teaching children about winning and losing and introducing rule-based games. The older they get, those sort of 5-year-olds. And I remember this was a real provocation to some children, perhaps who had not been exposed to either rule-based games, where like musical chairs or where there is a winner. So yeah, I remember one child said, "Winning, it's about being a team. If you want to win, you have to be a team," he said. And again, exploring everyday heroism, learning how to win and lose well. So that children can be champions no matter what, Looking at time and awareness of time, because that's a big curriculum outcome in our national curricular outcome. I know people do calendars and that sort of thing in preschool, and sometimes it's quite mindless, children sort of reciting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but what does that actually mean? In this class, it's sort of older class, we made our own calendar, and each child would get a turn to draw their most fun or their highlight of the day, the news story of the day, on the actual monthly calendar in whiteboard marker. So, just ways to learn things that we know we have to learn, but that are really meaningful to children as well. Let's see what else. We've mapped our own heart. So, socio-emotionally, what is in my heart? What am I feeling? Children drawing it in sand and paper. And just the incredible potential of children. This was again with that anatomy inquiry, which just went on and on, heart to brain to how we think to our circulation systems and respiratory systems, and this eventually was about how we see. And I just love this. I'm going to read it to you. This was Parker, and he says, do you know that your eyes don't see? They just help light come in. So the eyes are actually just, he says, contends that the eyes are just there to help light to come into your brain, so the brain can create the world around you. So actually, it's your brain is the only thing that exists. It's creating the world around you like an extra heaven. The brain is looking out of the eye. So it's the brain that is actually doing the seeing. The brain is the most powerful part of your body. Everything is just a type of hologram, he says, but you can feel it. And this is the power of documenting children's ideas, children's thoughts. So, if we just taught this part of anatomy, how we see the structure of the eye, we might not have got to this intelligence here that is about the interconnection between the brain and the eye and the whole optical nerve system. I mean, this child is 6, So this sparked a whole conversation, because we're not just going to take it take his word for it. We used this as a conversation starter, and we held a philosophical discussion or dialogue in the class about how do you see, about perspective. So I was the teacher at the time of this class of grade R children, and I taught the children about that sort of way of agreeing and disagreeing with each other very respectfully, but to give reasons for their perspectives. And this is how you do it. You start with the words, I agree or I disagree with so-and-so because da-da-da-da-da. So once they had that sort of sentence structure, they were able to voice their own ideas respectfully, but also learn from others. So using this as a provocation, it is, how do we see? Xavier says, so it's the eyes actually that I remember. I prompted him to remember the rules of the philosophical dialogue. You must say, I agree or I disagree with Parker because, and he quickly picked that up and he said, I disagree with Parker because I realize that the eyes make you see. And the eye sends the message to the brain. You see how he has listened to what Parker has said. Parker says it's the brain that makes you perceive. And he disagrees. He realizes it's a disagreement with what Parker has said, respectfully disagreeing. He says it's the eye that then sends the message to the brain. Luna says, I agree with Parker, but because this is not all there is in the world. She looks outside the window of the classroom. She says, it's just a 3D. There's other vibrations, she says. There's different vibrations. There's not only this, and she points to the surrounds in the classroom. There's different vibrations with mystical creatures. This is just a 3D. There's lots more vibrations. You see how she's trying to get to, she's trying to get to other dimensions, maybe 4 or 5 dimensions. I'm not exactly sure. And then Bophelo, he says, I agree with Parker. The eye doesn't see what's happening. The brain sees it, like as if there's an invisible eye. The brain sees it and then sends how it looks like to the eye. And then the eye can see the picture of it. It's this amazing way of having a discussion. Yes, seemingly about anatomy, but also just critical thinking about how everything is perceived, how it is all perceived. And then, of course, in our atelier that day, we took that theory, the theories that each person had formed after this discussion, having heard everybody's theories. We took it to paper and made these theory drawings about how the eye and the brain are connected and enable us to see, with the question from the art atelierista, how do we see? So just a really amazing way to work with children, who every time we launch an inquiry, we just prove back to ourselves how intelligent children really are, and how if we were just to follow the curriculum, the country's curriculum, it would be putting a ceiling on their thinking, on their ability to think. We'd be just teaching them what to think, and not how to think as well. I think in this 21st century, it's so very important to teach children how to think in community, to think dialogically, if that's a word, and to think for themselves, to have resources like anatomy books and actual artifacts from the park in front of them, but also to make their own theories about that as well. I just think it's just for a teacher as well. It's just a thrilling way to work with children. I just feel like it puts back the love of teaching into your school day with the children. So I know it's a longer, whatever this is, I don't know if it's a vlog or a reel, I don't really know, I'm not so au fait with that, but I just thought like some of this would be so nice to share, how we teach and learn at Small World curriculum wise. And let us know what do you think about this, and this way of working with children. Yeah, thanks.